34 chapters of Backcountry Horsemen of Washington are spread across our northwesternmost state. Public lands range from the shores of the Pacific through heavily wooded, brushy country, across the Cascade Mountains, down shrub-stepped mountainsides to arid lands with rivers running through them. Each unique terrain receives critical care and repair from our BCHW chapters. This year, our chapters brushed, chopped, sawed, and dug through trail maintenance projects, helping to tally up over 56,000 volunteer hours. We worked with public land managers and like-minded non-stock conservation advocates to foster good relations with our state representatives. Alpine Lakes chapter used a BCHA grant to purchase tools, which resulted in 285 man and stock hours, logging out 6 miles of impassable trails with aid from local high school teenagers in the Alpine Lakes wilderness. Packing provisions into the forest for the Northwest Youth Corps paled to the 1,450 pounds of discarded trash they hauled out of numerous sites. In 2009, a Ferry County chapter member rediscovered the abandoned Maple Mountain Trail that runs through the Colville National Forest into the Okanagan National Forest. For 2 years, Ferry County and Okanagan chapters labored together and worked with the Forest Service for a 2012 completion of the reclaimed trail. With the cooperation of the Olympic National Forest, in 2007, Grays Harbor chapter adopted the historic 17 miles of the West Fork Hump Tulips Trail. Aided by Nisqually, Oakland Bay, and Scatter Creek chapters, Washington Trails Association, and a youth volunteer vacation along with NOVA and RTP grants, this 5-year-long project is completed. The Goat Creek and Packwood Lake trails are a popular area for riders and hikers. These trails are where Lewis County chapter starts every year's trail work. Extensive repair to trail erosion and replacement of a washed-out bridge took several work parties. Lewis County assisted the U.S. Forest Service and advocacy organizations by hauling cargo for maintenance projects. 2.5 tons of food, camp gear, and tools were packed. The volunteer contribution of 74 members equaled a value of over $150,000 toward trail stewardship, all while practicing trail maintenance, leave no trace outdoor ethics. Methow Valley chapter became stewards of the Twist River Horse Camp 25 years ago and have maintained it since. Here they installed 5 new high lines and performed yearly maintenance on the 15-mile Twist River Trail. At Beaver Creek Campground, 3 manure bunkers were installed, and working alongside the U.S. Forest Service, they constructed the new Pasayten Drive Bridge. Mount Adams chapter took on a challenging task in 2012 at an altitude of 4,800 feet in the Indian Heaven wilderness. Severe storms in previous years had caused hunters to abandon camp and equipment, which they never reclaimed. Packers organized debris into packable portions, then divvied the load among the stock. Over 3 days, 8 pack stock made multiple trips to haul out 4 truckloads of trash. In 2008, Okanagan Valley chapter started work with the U.S. Forest Service, County, Bureau of Land Management, Pacific Northwest Trail Association, and high school students to create the Whistler Canyon Recreation Area. 2009 brought the first work party, as well as grants from RTP and the Secure Rural Schools Act. 2012 culminated these projects, having produced turnpike and tread construction, connector trails, habitat enhancement, vault toilets, loading ramp, hitching rails, and ample stock trailer access. The non-stock Duckabush River Trail provided Penninsula chapter an opportunity to supply work and support to the U.S. Forest Service, Washington Trails Association, Gray Wolf, and others in the Olympic National Forest with Sawyer instruction and pack support. 19 packers and 44 stock days helped clear the trails of trees and perform tread restoration. To complete a grant for bridges, members skylined the material into place for the 4th bridge. Since the 1999 construction of the fossil trail in the Mount St Helens Monument, Mount St. Helens chapter has watched the Cold Creek crossing deteriorate. This year they applied for and received a Title II grant for site preparation and building of a bridge across the creek. Working with the Mount St. Helens Institute and the U.S. Forest Service, Phase 1 was accomplished in 2012. To commemorate National Trails Day, Wenas Valley chapter cleared the Wildcat and Russell Ridge trails in the Wenatchee's Ranger District until being deterred by snow. Returning in July, they finished these two trails as well as the Ironstone Trail. Using native material, Wenatchee Valley chapter expended 120 man-hours replacing the post and rail fence that protects the wildlife habitat at Haney Meadow. 6 members of Inland Empire chapter spent 213 hours maintaining multi-use trails with chainsaws and weed whackers in Mount Spokane State Park. Grant funding enabled Inland to work alongside county parks, developing a multi-use bridge to bypass sensitive wildlife habitat. Nova State Parks and BCHW funded enhancements and built facilities for Riverside State Park. Working off a 2-year RTP grant secured by BCHW for trail improvements in Anderson Lake State Park, Buckhorn Range chapter spent much of 2012 doing manual labor, moving gravel onto trails. Every month, spring through summer, they would be out there. The grant paid for a power toter as well as 2 sets of gravel bags for chapter horses to carry. Over the course of the year, a large array of member, chapter, and rental equipment was used. The year ended with the December work party, which included green stock training and packing gravel to fill holes in trails. BCHW grant funds were procured by Capital Riders chapter for decking and hardware to complete a bridge in Capital State Forest. Volunteer service to this forest was greatly enhanced by the chapter with extensive trail maintenance. Attendance at the Department of Natural Resources bi-monthly meetings keeps Capital Riders and non-stock users in contact to coordinate maintenance efforts. Nisqually chapter has adopted the 11.4-mile Lost Valley Loop in Capital State Forest for over 15 years. In 2009, on-the-ground planning began for a 2.8-mile reroute to protect sensitive fish habitat. 2010 began the boots-on-the-ground work with chainsaws, Pulaskis, McLeods, shovels, and Swedes. 2012 brought about the completion of the NOVA and chapter-funded project. Pierce County chapter has been developing and maintaining Sahara Creek Campground and the surrounding 60-plus miles of the Nicholson Horse Trail system since 1989. With a once-per-month work party, great attendance of volunteers, and NOVA grants through the Department of Natural Resources, this year added numerous trail enhancements and erosion controls. In the Groom Campground, additional high lines, fire grates, and road access were added. Scatter Creek chapter members are conveniently close to Capital State Forest, and this is where they do a lot of volunteer work. Prior to the annual Great Gravel Haul, this chapter clears the route of the work trail, sawing, brushing, and reconning for trouble areas. Uniquely this year, they assisted the Department of Natural Resources in milling cedar boards for use in campgrounds and bridges. Wine Country chapter's annual March immunization event provides 300 to 400 doses of West Nile virus prevention. Their 10 years of hosting have enabled stock owners to pay at bulk rates, get brand inspections, learn about backcountry horseman membership, and the importance of preventing contagious equine diseases. With increasing access restrictions to Burke Lake, Wenas Valley chapter entered into an agreement with a private landowner adjacent to the area and installed 12 steel pipe corrals for Horsemen's use. Their 195 work hours and chapter financing were augmented by the landowner's financial contributions. Penninsula and other chapters collaborated with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Department of Natural Resources, Clallam County, Washington State Parks, and the U.S. Forest Service to spray herbicide on invasive and non-native plant growth on public lands near Sequim. Numerous other chapters worked on spraying with their local agencies.